All right, so we're diving into something a lot of you have asked about, using TV and movies to learn English.
Yeah.
And we're going way beyond that basic watch and learn idea.
Right.
You guys want the techniques that actually work.
Yeah.
So we dug into all your notes and comments, even this one podcast transcript we found.
Oh, wow. Another podcast.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like we all need another one to listen to, but we pulled out what we think are the real gems here.
Okay.
The strategies that'll help you take your English from like textbook level to actually being able to use it out in the real world.
Right.
Have you ever felt like you can order a coffee, but then if you bump into a friend at the cafe and they want to have a conversation,
Yeah.
you kind of freeze up.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
That's the gap we're tackling today.
That's a really common thing.
Yeah.
You know, people understand the basics, but then they get stuck when
Yeah.
it comes to like natural flowing conversation.
Exactly. It's like you get it kind of, but you don't feel confident enough to actually use it.
Exactly. And the cool thing about using TV and movies is that you're hearing authentic English.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of polished formal language you get in textbooks. It's
Right.
like the real deal,
Yeah.
how people actually talk.
So it's like instead of those like stiff textbook dialogues, you're getting a behind the scenes look at how it actually works.
Yeah. Think of it like this.
Okay.
Textbooks give you the ingredients, but TV and movies show you how to actually cook.
Ooh, I like that.
And the best part is it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you've been learning English for years.
Yeah.
There's always something new to pick up.
Okay, so for someone who's brand new to this, where do we even begin?
So the source we were looking at, it
Yeah.
mentioned starting with shows or movies that you already know.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because you already know the plot.
Yeah.
You can just focus on the language itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. It takes the pressure off.
Right.
But what about like all the fast talking and the slang and all that?
That's where subtitles come in.
Oh, right.
They're your friend.
Subtitles. Okay.
Especially when you're starting out.
Yeah.
It's like training wheels for your ears.
I like that.
And then you can gradually wean yourself off the subtitles as you start to understand more.
Good.
And genre-wise, you know, for beginners, sitcoms are great.
Oh,
Things like Friends or The Office.
yeah.
Because it's everyday language relatable situations.
Sitcoms. Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
Full of everyday conversations. And plus, who doesn't love a good laugh?
Exactly.
But how do we go from just passively watching to actually like learning and improving?
Yeah. So structure is key.
Okay.
And this is where this scene study technique comes in.
Scene study.
So this was something that the source really emphasized.
Yeah.
And instead of just like binge watching an entire season,
Yeah.
you pick a short scene
Okay.
and you watch it multiple times.
Multiple times.
I know it sounds a little repetitive, but
That goes.
the point is to really observe.
Okay.
And each time you watch, you catch different details.
Right.
Maybe the first time you're just trying to get the overall gist of the conversation.
Right.
Then you start picking out specific words, maybe focus on the intonation.
Yeah.
Like, how are they saying it?
So it's like you're peeling back layers of the language onion with each watch.
Exactly. And the source even suggested turning the subtitles off after a few watches.
Oh, wow.
Just to see if you can understand it.
That's a good challenge.
Just like a little quiz for yourself.
All right. I like it.
So you're watching, you're listening. But to really make that knowledge stick,
Uh-huh.
you have to become an active participant.
Okay. How do we do that?
So write down phrases that you think sound interesting.
Okay.
Practice saying them out loud.
Right.
Even
okay.
try like shadowing the actors.
Wait, shadow. What does that even mean?
Yeah, so you're basically mimicking their intonation.
So I'm trying to sound like Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah.
All right. I'll give it a try. That sounds fun.
It might feel a little silly at first.
Okay.
But it really helps you train your mouth to form the sounds correctly.
All right. So shadowing is going on my to-do list.
Yeah.
That's a good trick.
Ah,
Okay. So we're starting to see the benefits here.
yeah.
But what about all the like vocabulary and expressions that you pick up from shows
Yeah.
that you wouldn't necessarily find in textbook?
That's one of the biggest advantages of this approach.
Yeah.
You're exposed to so many idioms, slang, regional variations.
Like the stuff that makes you sound like a fluent speaker.
Exactly.
Oh, and I love this example from the source.
Yeah.
Like saying I'm exhausted instead of just I'm very tired.
Yeah.
Such a small change, but it makes such a difference.
It makes you sound more natural.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you're also picking up on all those cultural insights.
Right. You're not just learning words.
Yeah.
You're understanding how people express themselves.
It's like you're absorbing the culture along with the language.
Exactly.
But let's be real for a second.
Uh-huh.
This isn't all sunshine and rainbows, right?
Right.
What about when you hit those moments where it's like super fast dialogue, or you hear an accent you've never heard before?
Yeah, that can be really challenging, especially for beginners.
Yeah.
But there are ways to deal with it.
Okay.
The source recommended starting with scenes that are slower paced,
Okay.
or using that slow down feature, on YouTube or whatever you're watching.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
And the big thing is patience.
Yeah.
Don't get discouraged if you don't understand everything right away.
It's a process.
It's a journey.
Exactly.
Okay, so for those who are already pretty comfortable with English, where do we go from here? How do we level up?
Well, this is where you can ditch those training wheels
Okay,
and really challenge yourself.
I like it.
So the source suggested trying to watch without subtitles.
Ooh, without subtitles.
Yeah, and exploring more complex genres.
Okay.
Like maybe dramas or historical pieces.
Ooh, historical dramas.
Yeah.
I love those.
Lots of great vocabulary in those.
Think of all the words I could learn.
Uh,
But watching with no subtitles, that's a whole other level.
It is.
But it's a great way to push your listening comprehension.
That's true.
Documentaries are another really good option
Okay.
because they often have clear narration.
Yeah.
And they tend to focus on specific topics.
Right.
Like science or history.
So you can kind of build up your vocabulary in a specific area.
Exactly.
That's a smart strategy.
Okay.
So we're not just passively watching.
Right.
We're actively engaging.
Yeah. Take notes.
Take notes.
Maybe even try creating your own sentences with the new words that you learn,
Okay.
just to make them stick.
So it's really about taking ownership of your learning.
Exactly.
Now, before we move on, we've covered a lot here.
We have.
I feel like I'm already taking notes in my head.
Yeah.
There's so much good stuff.
It is a lot to take in,
Yeah.
but the beauty of this is that it's adaptable.
Yeah.
You choose what works for you.
What works for me at my level.
Exactly. And your interests, too.
Exactly. It's not one size fits all.
Right.
Okay, so what about those extra tools and resources?
Yeah. So let's talk about those. Okay.
Because the source mentioned this platform called LingoPie.
LingoPie. Have you heard of that?
LingoPie rings a bell, but I'm not really familiar.
So it's basically like Netflix for language learners.
Ooh, okay.
They have tons of shows and movies, but the cool part is that they have all these interactive features built in.
Okay.
Like transcripts, instant translations, even quizzes.
So it's like you've got a language teacher built into the streaming platform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It turns passive watching into active learning.
Nice.
And there are other apps out there too that use flashcards and games to help you with the vocabulary.
All right, so we've got the tech side covered.
Yeah.
What about good old-fashioned DIY learning?
Oh, that's always a classic.
Yeah.
So creating your own flashcards,
Yeah.
making vocabulary lists,
Yeah.
even just jotting down interesting phrases in a notebook.
Yeah.
That act of writing things down can really help solidify it in your memory.
It's like you're taking ownership of the language, making it your own. All right, so we've covered a ton of ground here.
We have?
From choosing the right shows
Yeah.
to active learning techniques.
Yeah.
We've even got bonus tools.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty amazing how much you can learn just from watching TV and movies.
It is. But remember, the goal here is to actually use this.
Yeah,
To actually be able to speak confidently in real-world situations.
right. Not just understand it when you're watching.
Exactly.
Like actually have that conversation with your friend in the cafe.
Right.
Not just order your coffee and run away.
Exactly.
And I think we've given our listeners a fantastic toolkit to get there.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
As you get better at English,
Uh-huh.
you'll find even more ways to make this learning method work for you.
That's a great point.
It's all about experimentation.
Yeah, finding what clicks for you.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've given our listeners the techniques and the tools.
Yeah.
But what about those moments when they feel lost? Like they're just not understanding anything?
Yeah, that happens even to native speakers.
Really?
You don't catch every word in every conversation.
Yeah.
So don't get hung up on understanding every single thing.
Okay,
Focus on the bigger picture,
right.
the context, the body language. You might be surprised how much you can infer,
Right.
even if you miss a few words here and there.
Sometimes we get so focused on the details, we miss the forest for the trees.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to rewind.
Yeah.
Rewatch, use subtitles. It's all part of the process.
It's a journey.
Exactly. And the key is to gradually build your confidence and fluency.
I like that. It's like a permission slip to not be perfect all the time,
Right.
which is very freeing.
Yeah.
But watching isn't enough, right?
Right. The source emphasized that you really have to take action
Okay.
to really engage with the language.
What did that look like?
So take notes on new words and phrases, but then use them.
Oh, okay.
Create your own sentences, say them out loud, even try to slip them into conversations.
So it's not enough to just passively absorb it.
Right.
You have to actively produce it.
Yeah, make it part of who you are.
I'm starting to see how this goes way beyond just watching TV.
It does. It's about weaving English into the fabric of your life.
I like that.
And as you become more comfortable,
Yeah.
you can start experimenting with different learning techniques.
Okay.
Maybe one week you focus on pronunciation, another week you tackle a tricky grammar point.
So it's about personalizing it, tailoring it to your needs.
Exactly.
But where do you even find resources for that kind of targeted practice?
There are so many resources out there.
Okay.
You'd be surprised.
Quick way.
Websites, apps, YouTube channels
Okay.
dedicated to specific aspects of English.
Wow.
You can find pronunciation guides, interactive grammar exercises,
Yeah.
even games that make learning fun.
It's amazing how technology has opened up so many possibilities.
I know, right?
Like back in the day, it was textbooks and maybe a cassette tape if you were lucky.
Right.
And now look at us. And the best part is you get to choose what works for you.
Exactly.
Some people like structured courses.
Yeah.
Other people prefer to go at their own pace.
It's all about finding what you enjoy and sticking with it.
I love that learning shouldn't feel like a chore.
Right.
It should be a joy.
Exactly.
And speaking of joy, let's not forget that learning English with TV and movies
Yeah.
is about entertainment.
It is.
So you can indulge your passions, your interests,
Yeah.
while you're leveling up your language skills.
Exactly.
Like if you love cooking shows, watch them in English.
Yeah.
Obsessed with history, dive into those documentaries.
Exactly.
It's like you're sneaking in the learning
You are.
without even realizing it.
Totally.
And it makes it so much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Instead of memorizing lists of vocabulary,
Right.
you're immersing yourself in these stories,
Yeah.
characters,
Worlds that you're interested in.
worlds that you find fascinating. But as you get more comfortable, you can branch out, explore different genres and styles.
Yeah, start with something lighthearted.
Okay.
Like a comedy.
Yeah.
Then maybe move on to something more complex, like a drama.
Okay.
And eventually you'll be able to handle those action films
Yeah.
that used to seem totally incomprehensible.
It's like leveling up in a video game.
It is.
Each new challenge you conquer boosts your confidence
Exactly.
and keeps you going.
Yeah, and don't forget the social aspect of it, too.
Oh, yeah.
You can discuss shows and movies with friends.
Yeah.
Join online communities.
Yeah.
Even attend film clubs or screenings.
That's a great point. Learning doesn't have to be a solitary pursuit.
It doesn't. It can be a way to connect with others
Mm-hmm.
who share your interests.
And build relationships.
Exactly.
Those connections can be so motivating.
They can. You're supporting each other.
Yeah.
Sharing tips and resources.
Celebrating each other's successes.
Exactly.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders cheering you on
It is.
every step of the way. All right, so as we continue our deep dive,
Okay.
let's focus on some specific strategies
Yeah.
to really maximize that learning experience.
Right.
We've talked about active engagement,
Right.
but what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, one technique that the source highlighted was shadowing.
Shadowing.
You ever tried that?
Shattering. I've heard of it, but I've never actually tried it.
Okay.
Sounds a little intimidating if I'm being honest.
It might seem that way, but it's actually simpler than you think.
Okay.
So basically, you listen to a short audio or video clip, and then you repeat it out loud,
Okay.
trying to match the intonation, the rhythm, the pronunciation as closely as possible.
So I'm like mimicking the speaker trying to sound just like them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a vocal workout
Oh.
that trains your mouth muscles
Okay.
to produce those sounds correctly
Right.
and helps you develop a more natural flow of speech.
So it's like having a personal pronunciation coach right there in the TV.
Exactly.
I like it.
And the great thing is you can do it with any audio or video material.
Oh, really?
So a scene from your favorite show, a news report,
Yeah.
even a song.
Oh, wow.
Anytime you're listening to something in English,
No.
you can turn it into a shadowing practice session.
I like that. It makes it feel less like studying
Exactly.
and more like just enjoying the content.
That's the goal.
Okay, so shadowing, check.
Yeah.
Now, what about transcripts?
Oh, transcripts are another great tool.
Transcripts, like the written dialogue of the show.
Exactly.
Okay.
They can be so helpful for language learners.
In what way?
Well, you can see the words as you're hearing them,
Right.
which can be really helpful if you're trying to identify new vocabulary
Yeah.
or check your comprehension or even just slow things down if the dialogue is too fast.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially for those rapid-fire conversations.
Right.
Where it's hard to catch every single word.
Exactly. And you can use transcripts for all sorts of activities.
Use what?
You can highlight new vocabulary, create flashcards.
Okay.
You can even try writing summaries or dictations.
So you're turning the transcript into your own personal language workbook.
Exactly.
I like that. That's clever.
It's a great way to repurpose the material.
But where do you even find transcripts?
A lot of streaming platforms offer closed captioning
Oh, right.
or subtitles, which can be used as transcripts.
Okay.
And there are websites out there that are specifically dedicated to providing transcripts
Oh, wow.
for all sorts of audio and video content.
So there's really no excuse not to use them.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got shadowing transcripts.
Yeah.
What other strategies are there?
Well, another one that can be really effective is focusing on specific grammar points.
Ooh.
So, for example, you could choose a show or a movie that, uses a lot of conditional sentences or reported speech and pay attention to how those structures are used in real conversations.
It's like turning your favorite show into a grammar lesson. And that's way more fun than just studying grammar rules in a textbook.
It is.
I can just imagine it being more memorable that way, too.
It is. By seeing how native speakers use grammar naturally, you'll develop a much deeper understanding of the nuances than you would from just memorizing rules.
It's about making the grammar come alive
Exactly.
and feel relevant.
Yes.
And don't underestimate the power of repetition.
Oh, repetition is key.
Yeah.
The more you expose yourself to certain grammar structures, the more natural they will become.
It's like building muscle memory.
Exactly.
But for grammar.
For grammar.
So we're watching, we're shadowing, we're analyzing the grammar. It's about being an active participant
Exactly.
in that learning process.
It is. It's about taking control and shaping the experience.
To fit your needs.
Fit your goal.
The one aspect we haven't talked about yet is a cultural immersion.
Oh, yeah.
Which is so crucial
It is.
for really understanding a language.
Because language isn't just words and grammar.
Right.
It's a reflection of a culture's values, customs, ways of thinking.
It's all connected.
It is.
And TV and movies give you this amazing window
They do.
into different cultures. You see different perspectives,
Different lifestyles.
different ways of interacting.
Exactly.
It's like traveling the world without leaving your couch.
It is. And as you immerse yourself, you
Yeah.
start to pick up on these subtle differences in the language, the humor, social norms.
Yeah.
You'll develop a deeper appreciation for just the diversity of human expression.
That's a great point.
And a more nuanced understanding of the language you're learning.
It adds a whole new dimension.
It does.
Speaking of dimensions, let's talk about pronunciation.
Okay.
That can be a real stumbling block for language learners.
It can be.
Because you're training your mouth to make sounds that might be totally new to you.
That's right.
Ugh, I know the feeling. Sometimes I feel like my tongue is tied in knots, trying to get those sounds right.
It's a common challenge.
Okay, so what are some strategies that can help?
Well, we've already talked about shadowing,
Yeah.
but another good approach is to break down words into their individual sounds,
Okay.
or what we call phonemes.
Oh, phonemes. Those take me back, like those phonetic charts.
Yeah.
I remember those from my early language learning days.
Yeah.
They look like something out of a science fiction movie.
They can be a bit intimidating at first,
Yeah.
but once you understand the basic symbols, they're super helpful.
Okay.
Because you can use them to identify the specific sounds that you're having trouble with,
Right.
and then practice producing them correctly.
It's like having a roadmap
Exactly.
for your pronunciation journey.
Exactly. And I know you mentioned this earlier.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to exaggerate the sounds at first,
Exaggerate. Okay.
because it may feel silly, but it really helps you train those mouth muscles.
So it's like giving your mouth a pronunciation workout.
Exactly.
And then you gradually blend the sounds together
Right.
to form words and
To
phrases.
form sentences.
Okay.
It's like putting a pronunciation puzzle together.
Right.
And remember, practice makes perfect.
Of course, always.
So the more you practice,
Yeah.
the more natural those sounds will become.
Okay, so we've got shadowing, we've got phonetics,
Yes.
lots of practice.
Lots of practice.
What other tips do you have?
One other good one is to listen to recordings of native speakers.
Okay.
And try to imitate their intonation and rhythm.
So it's about learning the musicality of the language.
It is.
I've also heard that recording yourself speaking can be helpful.
It can be.
Though a little cringy at first.
It can be a little awkward.
Yeah, to hear your own voice.
But it's so valuable.
Yeah.
Because you can identify those little quirks that you might not even be aware of.
Like a little pronunciation coach right in your pocket.
Exactly.
You know, another resource that comes to mind are language partners.
Oh, language partners are fantastic.
Yeah.
They can be so helpful for practicing speaking and listening.
Okay, so a language partner is a native speaker.
Right.
Who's willing to help you practice.
Exactly.
Okay.
They can give you feedback on your pronunciation, correct your grammar, introduce you to new vocabulary.
It's like having a personal tutor who's also a friend.
It is.
And I imagine that they can offer a more personalized experience
Oh, absolutely.
than you would get from just a textbook or an app.
Yeah, they can tailor the sessions to your needs.
To my needs.
Yeah, and your interests.
And they could also expose you to
different cultural perspectives.
That's so valuable.
It is. It's like having a cultural ambassador.
Ooh, I like that.
Guiding you through the language.
Okay, but how do you even find a language partner?
There are tons of ways.
Okay.
You could join online language exchange communities.
Okay.
You could go to language meetups.
Yeah.
You could even reach out to friends or colleagues who speak the language you're learning.
It's about leveraging your existing network.
It is.
And expanding your social circle.
Exactly.
But I imagine it takes some effort to make those partnerships work.
It does. It's like any partnership.
Yeah.
It requires communication.
Right.
And collaboration.
Makes sense.
Be upfront about your goals,
Yeah.
what you want to achieve.
Communicate your needs.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the big picture strategies down to the nitty-gritty details.
We have.
I feel like I've learned so much.
It's been a great exploration.
It has. And the most important thing is to enjoy the process.
It is. If you're having fun,
Yeah.
you're much more likely to stick with it
Yes.
and see results.
I love that reminder. Learning should be a joy, not a chore.
Exactly.
And speaking of joy, I think it's time for a quick break.
Okay.
We'll be right back with the final part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Sounds good. We were talking about those extra tools and resources to help supercharge your learning.
Right, those bonus tools.
Yeah. The source mentioned this platform called Lingopie. Have you heard of it?
Lingopie.
Yeah.
It rings a bell, but I'm not totally familiar. What's the deal with it?
It's like Netflix, but for language learners.
Ooh, okay.
They have all kinds of shows and movies. But the cool part is they have these interactive features built right in.
Like what kind of features?
So you've got transcripts, instant translations, even quizzes.
So it's like having a language teacher baked into the streaming platform.
Exactly.
That's pretty neat.
It turns passive watching into active learning.
I like that.
And there are other apps out there too that use things like flashcards and games to help you learn vocabulary.
Okay, so we've got the tech side covered.
Yeah.
What about just good old-fashioned DIY learning?
Oh, that's always a winner.
Yeah.
So creating your own flashcards, making vocabulary lists, even just writing down interesting phrases in a notebook, that act of writing things down can really help solidify it in your memory.
It's like you're taking ownership of the language, making it your own.
Exactly.
I'm a big believer in that. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here.
We have.
From choosing the right shows to active learning techniques, even those bonus tools.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much you can learn just by watching TV and movies.
It really is. But the ultimate goal here is to actually use this to be able to speak confidently in real life situations.
Not just understand it passively when you're watching TV.
Exactly, like having a real conversation with that friend at the cafe.
Yeah, not just ordering a coffee and running away.
Exactly.
But I think we've given our listeners a fantastic toolkit to get there.
Absolutely. And the best part is this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
As you progress, you'll discover even more ways to make this work for you.
That's a great point.
It's all about experimentation.
Yeah, finding what clicks for you.
Exactly.
All right, we are back for the final part of our deep dive into learning English with TV and movies.
It's amazing how much there is to uncover, isn't it?
It really is. I feel like we've already opened up this treasure chest of techniques and resources.
We have.
But I'm always up for more. So, what else have you got?
Well, before the break, we were talking about pronunciation and cultural immersion.
Right.
But let's not forget about one of the most fun parts of language learning.
Okay.
Idioms.
Ooh, idioms. Those are the expressions that make you sound like a real insider.
Exactly.
but I'll be honest, they used to really trip me up.
I can imagine.
I remember hearing the phrase, spill the beans, and I pictured someone literally spilling beans all over the floor.
I can see that happening.
No.
It's because their literal meaning often has nothing to do with the intended meaning.
Yeah, that's what makes them so tricky.
But that's also what makes them interesting.
Sure.
And TV and movies are full of them.
So how do we tackle them without getting lost in translation?
Context is key.
Okay,
So pay attention to how the characters are using them in conversations.
Right.
And try to figure out what they mean based on the situation.
So it's like a little language puzzle.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to write them down.
Yeah.
Make flashcards.
Okay.
You can even try using them yourself in conversations.
Okay.
Carefully at first.
Right.
Just to make sure you're using them correctly.
It's all about experimenting and having fun with the language.
Exactly, and not being afraid to make mistakes.
Speaking of fun, what about using games to learn English?
Oh, games are fantastic.
Yeah.
For language learning, no matter your age or level.
Games are my weakness. I love word games. I love puzzles.
Me too.
And there are so many great apps and online resources that turn language learning into a game.
It's like sneaking in some learning.
Yeah, while you're having fun.
Exactly. And there are so many different kinds of games.
Oh, yeah.
So you can find ones that focus on specific skills like vocabulary or grammar.
Okay.
Or games that offer a more immersive experience like role-playing.
So it's like choosing your own learning adventure.
Exactly.
I like it.
Right.
And you can play games with friends or other learners.
Yeah.
It becomes a social activity.
Exactly. Learning together can be so motivating.
Yeah, it can.
And fun.
But let's not forget about one of the most important ingredients for success.
Okay.
Consistency.
Yes. Consistency is key.
That's always the hardest part for me.
I know, it can be tough.
Life gets... And the way things get busy, it's so easy to let things slide.
It is, but think of it like watering a plant.
Okay, watering a plant.
A little bit of water every day
Yeah.
is going to keep it healthy and thriving.
Okay.
You don't need to spend hours studying every single day.
Right.
But even just 15, 20 minutes of consistent practice
Yeah.
can make a huge difference.
That's a great analogy. I like that. So we're building a sustainable routine.
Exactly.
Something that fits into our lives without feeling overwhelming.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of using TV and movies.
Yeah.
It fits so naturally into our leisure time.
That's true. We're already watching.
Right. So why not make it a learning opportunity?
Exactly. It's like a bonus.
I love it. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
I know. It's incredible how much there is to talk about.
It's amazing how much you can learn just from watching TV and movies if you do it intentionally.
If you're strategic about it.
Any final words of wisdom before we wrap things up?
Just remember, language learning is a journey,
Oh.
not a race.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. So embrace the process, celebrate your progress,
Yeah,
and never give up on your goals.
I love it.
And with the right tools and strategies, you can really turn your love of TV and movies into this powerful engine for language learning.
That is a fantastic note to end on. So go forth, language learners, find a show you love, and start learning.
That's it.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive, and happy watching.